Companion is a January movie that's actually good, and I really enjoyed my time with this thing, so let's talk about it. But as always, before we get started, if you're new here, my name is Erin, and I talk all things movies and TV, but really mostly movies. So if you're into that sort of thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. It would be greatly appreciated on my end, and if you've already seen the movie, let me know your thoughts on it in the comments. But without further ado, let's talk about Companion. Now, I'm going to try to do this review without spoiling a certain aspect of the film because the trailers do spoil one of the reveals in this movie, and I'll talk about how I feel about that a little later in this review. So I am going to try to dance around that aspect of the film, and if you've seen the movie, then you know exactly what reveal I am talking about. But anyways, let's get into what this movie is about. So in this, we follow a couple played by Quaid and Sophie Tatcher, and they go on a weekend getaway with friends, but things soon take a dark turn and get crazy quickly. Jumping right into the good, and the first thing I have here is the performances. Starting with Sophie Tatcher, I thought she was the star of the show. Her character goes on this journey of self-discovery and essentially breaking free of control, and I thought that lined up really nicely with the themes of this movie. A lot of the best moments in this thing came when she was on screen, in my opinion. And even though her character had a lot of dialogue, she was also able to show a lot of emotion with just her eyes, so you always knew what her character was thinking and feeling. Moving on to Quaid, and he also did a really good job, and he had plenty of moments in this movie where he shined as well. We slowly learn more and more about his character as we go on, and as you're watching this film, your perspective does change on how you feel about him from the beginning of this movie to the end, and I just thought that was a really cool aspect of his character and this film in general. The side characters were also a lot of fun, and I think each of those actors also turned in solid performances. My favorite side character being Eli, who was played by Harvey Guillen. He was kind of the comedic relief of this movie and added a little bit of lightheartedness to this film as well, which I really enjoyed. Next up for the good, I have the humor, and this is actually one thing that surprised me about this movie. It was actually pretty funny. Even though this is listed as a sci-fi thriller, the humor helped give this a more unserious and lighthearted tone, and this humor was also really well timed and never felt out of place or necessarily took away from the more serious moments of this movie. They didn't overuse it either. It was really the perfect amount of humor for this movie that added some fun to this thing while also not feeling overbearing. And on a side note, I will say that this movie mixed in a lot of different elements within this thriller, so I guess if I had to describe it or just put this movie in a genre, I would describe it as a psychological thriller with horror elements and dark comedy mixed in, and I think they balanced all those elements very well. Moving on to the so-so, and the only thing I have here is that I do wish this movie explored its themes just a little bit more. This thing has themes of love and what love means and how to break free from an unhealthy relationship, but also the dynamics of that relationship. And I thought those themes were displayed well, especially through the journey of Sophie Tatcher's character, as I said before, but we really didn't get to dig into them like I think we could have. It remained pretty surface level in my opinion, and to their credit, near the end of the movie, they did start to dig into those themes just a little bit more, but for me, it was just a too little, too late type situation. Now, I am satisfied with what they did with the themes and ideas that they brought up. I just wish throughout this movie they would have explored those themes and ideas a little bit more to give this story and our characters a little bit more depth. And finally, getting into the bad, and the first thing I have here is something that I mentioned briefly in the very beginning of this video, but the trailers, especially that second one, spoils one of the reveals in this movie. Now, for me, I did see the trailers before watching this movie, so I didn't know that what they showed in the trailer they would treat as a big reveal right there in the beginning of this movie. So when we got to that moment and they did that reveal, it was supposed to be some shock and awe moment, but me, I was just like, aren't we supposed to know that that was going to happen? And I couldn't help but think that, man, if I didn't see any of the trailers before going into this movie and I just went in blind, that moment would have been really cool. Now, they do get to this reveal in the first act of the movie, so it by no means spoils or ruins the entire film. There was still plenty of stuff that they didn't show in the trailers, so I was still on my toes for a lot of the story. But I just couldn't understand why they would show what they did in the trailer and then turn around and treat it as this big reveal in the beginning of the movie. So if you haven't seen any of the trailers, I would suggest that you don't watch them because I think your experience with this movie will be better if you don't. And finally, for the bad is that, in my opinion, it did take a little bit for this movie to really get going, and I think a lot of that is because I knew of that reveal beforehand. It was really the first 20 minutes of this thing that felt slow for me because I did know of that big reveal because of the trailers, but once we got to that moment and past that moment, I was locked in from there on out because it was only good from there. And also, this movie just does a really good job at keeping you guessing, and that's part of the reason why this film is so engaging in my opinion. But at the end of the day, this is still a really good movie. It's got great performances and a story that will keep you on your toes along with some interesting themes. This movie is a lot of fun, so I would definitely recommend you go see it. Those are my thoughts on Companion. Be sure to let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comments, and as always, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, get your Eazy Apparel at shopeasyapparel.com. God bless, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.